Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Pointless Top 10, a show where we make top 10 lists of pointless things, where we fly and buy pointless statue in Booty Bay, because inside pointless things are treasure. Let's begin. 10. Number 10 is the zone transition between Tanaris and Uldum, and there's actually two of them, one of which is functional and the other is not functional. And so I'm sure many people are aware of this one. It's the Valley of the Watchers, and this is where there used to be this large gate back pre-Cataclysm, and then post-Cataclysm, it all got destroyed, and now there's a bunch of sandstone golems walking around and crashed doors and broken walls, and you can go inside here, but you can't go all the way through. You can just go into this part, and you'll see there's some earthen guarding some crazy floor with hieroglyphics on it, and there's beams of light coming through the skylight and the ceiling, and there's some weird machinery stuff going back there, and it's really cool, but you can't go through it. You can even go into Uldum and see the other side where you should be able to come out, but it's all just caved in with rocks and various other stuff. So that leads us to our other entrance, which is the actual zone transition you can pass through from Tanaris to Uldum, and this one's really cool. There's this big passageway with these Anubis statues, or various Egyptian style statues, and there's these big blocks or slabs of stone, and it just looks really cool. It almost reminds me of in real life when you'd walk into these big cathedrals built in the Middle Ages, or maybe if you were to actually walk into like the pyramids, right? It gives you this feeling of awe, like this is crazy, how did they do this? And so I just had to put it on the list, and that's why the Uldum Tanaris zone transition is number 10. 9. Number 9 is the zone transition between the Townlong Steps and the Dreadwaste, and it's really just this massive log bridge. And so I looked into it, and this is actually called the Dusklight Bridge, and it says this bridge was formed when the great tree that now compromises Dusklight Hollow fell over the widening deep in southwestern Townlong Steps, bridging the two zones together. Dusklight Rangers and skirmishers under command of Lao Chin the Ironbelly are fending off core-thick timber husks streaming over the bridge, which are just the manted people. But yeah, these are the types of zone transitions that I really love in World of Warcraft, and it's where one of the zones has something occur that impacts the other zone, right? Like, I really love that. And so here we have like one of the trees in the Dreadwaste fell over into the Townlong Steps, and now because of that, we have a way between the two zones where there previously wasn't one. And the tree itself is pretty cool as well, right? Like if you fly or walk through here, you can kind of peer out the tree because it's got holes in it. So it's kind of like you're looking out a bark window or something. And then there's a bunch of this moss hanging from the tree that looks cool. So overall, I just think this is really cool. And that's why it's number 9. 8. Number 8 is the zone transition between the Arathi Highlands and the Hillsbrad Foothills, otherwise known as Thoradin's Wall. And it says here that the wall may have protected Stromgarde and the Arathi Highlands from the invading Scourge, but this was not its original purpose, the wall having existed for many centuries prior to the Third War. In World of Warcraft, the wall is heavily damaged, but if you go to the Escape from Durnhold Keep instance in the Caverns of Time, you can see that the wall is in considerably better condition. But to me, this wall provides one of the most iconic zone transitions in World of Warcraft, because if this wall wasn't here, you would just run from Hillsbrad to Arathi and be like, okay, whatever, right? Like, oh, it's hills now. But I remember just seeing this giant wall and then the big arching gate here and being able to run under it. You just feel so tiny compared to this giant gate. And, you run to the other side and then you see all these highlands and the raptors walking around. And, you can turn around and see all the Hillsbrad Foothill autumn-esque trees behind you and just be like, dude, it feels like I just went through a portal, right? Like walking under this big gate feels like you just went to a different world. And it's kind of because you did. You went to a new zone. And so I just love that type of aesthetical experience. And it also says here that the wall is likely inspired by Hadrian's Wall from the ancient Roman Empire. So overall, this is just an awesome zone transition. And that's why it's number 8. 7. Number 7 are the zone transitions between Zangarmarsh and Nagrand and Zangarmarsh and Hellfire Peninsula. And I really like both of these because they kind of have what I was just talking about, right? Where each zone is kind of invading each other's personal space just a little bit to provide this type of like zone fusion between the two. So in Hellfire, we actually have the brambles growing into Zangarmarsh, almost like overtaking the bridge a little bit, but then they just stop. And then you can see there that on the other side in Hellfire, we have a mushroom that's trying to grow in Hellfire, but it's just like dying, it's diseased, it's just really struggling, like it's clearly gonna not make it much longer. But I love that because we are getting the blending of these two zones. Then on the other side, we have the Nagrand stuff, and so you can see some of these Nagrand trees are trying to grow into Zangarmarsh, and some of them are actually doing it, and they're doing it pretty well, and they have some life to them, but then there's some other Nagrand trees that are clearly growing a bit too far, or they're struggling, they're not getting enough resources, and you can see them lacking color, and they're dying. And then on the flip side, we also have these mushrooms mushrooms that are trying to grow into grand, but those mushrooms are not doing too well either. So I really just love all these types of zone fusions and blending together when we get these zone transitions, and that's why I decided to put the Zangarmarsh zone transitions at number 7. 6. Number 6 is the zone transition between Val'sharah and High Mountain, and specifically the tiny little rock path zone transition that you can start at in Val'sharah, and you just walk up and eventually you end up in High Mountain. And this is a perfect example of something that I think is really cool in a video game that I would never do in real life, because I would be so afraid of falling off this thing and just dying or becoming like paralyzed or whatever it might be, right? But hey, there's plenty of people that would go up this in real life. There's people that like climb into those tiny little caves and go like whatever, spelunking or whatever it's called, and then they get trapped and die, and they're like, no thanks, man, I'm good. But I really do love this kind of zone transition, because it's like this little secret hidden path that you can go up, and it starts in the forest of Val'sharah, and as you go up the path, there's still like a lot of Val'sharah trees and things along the path, but the higher up you go and the closer you get to High Mountain, the more it starts looking like High Mountain. There's, you know, different types of bridges and totems, and the grass changes. There's like Ettins walking around and stuff. The trees become High Mountain trees, and I just think it's really unique, and so that's why the High Mountain Val'sharah zone transition is number 6. 5. Number 5 is the zone transition between Dragonblight and the Crystal Song Forest. And it says here that this area is actually called the Crystal Vice, and it's like a massive canyon, and it has a bunch of skeleton dragons sticking out of the walls, and there's a bunch of Jormungar worms squirming around, and it's a really cool area. And then there's the ice giants that are also there. And then from Crystal Song, you can see this big broken piece of the Path of the Titans that's just hanging over there like a roof. And then under that is a bunch of these elven pillars and archways and, you know, just various old elven types of structures. But yeah, I really wanted to put this on the list because I remember being in Crystal Song Forest back in the day in Wrath of the Lich King and always looking down there and being like, dude, that's so crazy. Like, to get to Dragonblight, you got to go through this, you know, like big glacier area. And then, you know, on the flip side, if you're in Dragonblight and you come out the other side, you see all these mountains and these trees and these elvish structures, and it's really cool as well. So I just wanted to put it on the list, and that's why it's number 5. 4. Number 4 is the zone transition between Fellwood, Winterspring, and Moonglade, otherwise known as Timbermaw Hold. And Timbermaw Hold is actually the capital of the Timbermaw tribe of Furbolgs, and it is the tunnels that connect Fellwood, Moonglade, and Winterspring together. And I talked about the Timbermaw Hold in Pointless Top 10 Furbolgs a bit, but essentially, this place was a hideout or a bunker for them to escape from the corruption of the forests and the Burning Legion. And so even though they were safe in here, they essentially had to watch as everything they knew and loved became corrupted, which is pretty much the entire story of the Furbolgs. They're always corrupted in some way. And so it even says here that the Furbolgs are wary of all strangers, fearing that they may mistake them for their corrupted brethren and attack. And so yeah, I always remember coming here in Classic WoW and trying to run through this place, right? And you'd get attacked by all the Timbermaw Furbolgs, and you're just like, dude, what the heck? I'm just trying to get through here. But the reason is because they are so, you know, cautious and kind of on edge about everything from all the corruption that you have to build up that trust or that reputation with them for them to actually allow you through. And I also love how the entrances to the Timbermaw Hold are these big bear heads you have to go into, and that's because the Furbolgs worship the bear god Ursoc. And so yeah, I'd say this is definitely one of the most well-known zone transitions in World of Warcraft. Everybody's been through these tunnels and everybody knows about them. So that's why the Winterspring Fellwood Moonglade zone transition is number 4. 3. Number 3 is the zone transition between the Veiled Stair and the Kunlai Summit called the Ancient Passage. And so to go through the Ancient Passage, you have to go on this boat ride with Brewmaster Boof and Eggshell the Grummel. And when you're on this boat, they have a little conversation, a little back and forth, and he's just like, ever been to Kunlai before? It's great. Long flowing farmlands, beautiful mountains, and absolutely nothing dangerous whatsoever. And then Eggshell's like, Hosen attack Grummels! And he's just like, well, yeah, there's problems with the Hosen. And he's like, tigers! And he's like, yeah, and the tigers. And they kind of just have this little back and forth the whole way through the tunnel. And then eventually you arrive in Kunlai Summit, and he's just like, what's going on here? Do I hear fighting? These people are farmers, not fighters. They need our help. And then it starts the whole Kunlai Summit quest chain. But I just always thought this was a really cool way to get from from one zone to the other, right? Like, it's almost like going on a ride at an amusement park like Disneyland or something, and then there's a bunch of these evil Sethrak kind of all over the place, like, lurking around. And it just adds this element of like, oh, this is too dangerous to go ahead. We need to help you get through here. And I just think it helps bring the world to life when you have these types of things. It also says here that the ancient passage seems to be the source of all rivers in Pandaria, with the exception of one, which is the waterfall that flows from the Vale of Eternal Blossoms into the Gilded Fane. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, the ancient passage is definitely one of the most unique zone transitions in the game, and that's why it's number 3. Number 2 is the zone transition between the Eastern Plaguelands and the Ghostlands, or Eversong Woods, depending on if you're in Classic or Retail. And when they revamped this whole area for Retail WoW, I was curious what they were going to do here, because obviously there's these portals that used to be here, and they would warp you to the Ghostlands from the Eastern Plaguelands and vice versa, and it always had like a little bit of a zone transition there. You could even see it a bit through the portal, and I was like, are they going to just get rid of this? Like, how's it going to work? But they actually did a phenomenal job updating the zone transition. So they updated the archway where the portal used to be, and they still have like a little portal on the side you could go to the old versions in. But then we have these kind of updated versions of the Eastern Plaguelands trees that start here. These purple trees, and there's this road that leads into these mountains, and there's a bunch of different foliage and plants, and then we see that kind of just get better and better as we get closer to the Eversong Woods, where the trees start becoming more vibrant and full of life, while at the start there's like all these mushrooms, and there's these broken wagons and pieces of pottery, and it just has this gloomier feel, almost like we are more towards the Eastern Plaguelands. And I just really appreciate these types of things, because they could have just ignored this and been like, whatever, right? But they actually put some effort into the zone transition between the two zones to make it have some more life in the world. And so I just want to give them some props for doing a great job with the zone transition, and so that's why it's number 2. And number 1 is the zone transition between Nazmir and Zuldazar. And I know what some people are thinking. They're going, Crendor picking more BFA stuff, right? But I love BFA's art, man. It's so good. And I especially love it here. Like, you have the waterfalls of Zuldazar flowing down, and you have all of the kind of Aztec-themed structures that are part of Dazara lore. And you have, you know, animal life like hippos and brutosaurs and pterodactyls. There's a bunch of big vibrant trees and vines, and it just feels very alive. But then on the other side, we have the Nazmir stuff, right? We have the blood trolls, we have the bats, we have you know, a bunch of trees that look like they're kind of dying or falling over, and a bunch of these like temple structures that are decaying. And it's all kind of brought together by this really long, rickety jungle type of bridge, which then leads into this like broken piece of road. And then you get that sense that you're going from the jungle to the swamp, or vice versa. And so yeah, I always remember going here for the first time and kind of being blown away by just how much was happening and how much the zones were kind of clashing together. And I always loved that. And so that's why I decided to put it at number 1. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this episode of Pointless Top 10. If you want more Top 10s, you go watch Top 10 Mountains if you missed that one, since that kind of ties into more of the nature aesthetic of World of Warcraft. Or if you want something longer to waste your time, I uploaded a 4-hour compilation of job-related Pointless Top 10s. Okay? Okay. See ya.